I've decided to go all in on product photography, and I thought it would be a great idea to bring you guys along with me as I start this business and grow it from the ground up. And so I'll be sharing a lot of the behind the scenes of what it looks like during shooting, coming up with ideas, coming up with a shot list, and creating a finished product. So naturally, in today's video, I'm going to be going behind the scenes of a test spec product photo shoot that I did for a company called Bobo's PB&J. In this video, I'm going to be going over a spec project scope, a shot list, some of the tweaks and ideas that I made with that shot list. I'll be going over some of the gear that I used to create some of this, and then my thought process around selecting certain images and what I included in what I'm calling the final deliverable. Before we go any farther, I do want to mention that this is not sponsored. I am not affiliated with Bobo's or the agencies that they work with to create some of their imagery. This project was purely for portfolio spec and to show potential clients and other potential people that I work with my thought process and how I come up with these ideas and what finished projects and finished products could look like. And with that, let's get started. Every project should start with a project scope. This way you know what you're shooting, why you're shooting it, what these images and what the final product and deliverable should be. So for this, I used ChatGPT to help me come up with a project scope. That way I could have parameters to work within. I think this is a really good idea if you're trying to figure out what those parameters should be. You don't want to just, show up and shoot. You want to make sure that you have a plan and you have ideas for what the final images should be used for. The next thing I did was also use ChatGPT to help me come up with a shot list. So I am a firm believer, especially when working with clients and working with people who are going to use these final images, whether on social media, in print media, on billboards, that you have a general idea of what your shots need to be. That way you're not going into the shoot blind, and you can make sure that you nail the shots that you need, but then after the shoot, you also have time to get a little creative, making sure that your timing is right and making sure that you walk away from the shoot with all of the assets and images that you need. So based on the project scope that I came up with, I am set to walk away from the shoot with 10 to 15 usable images. And today, the main images that I focused on were the hero images and product focused images. Because I only had one flavor of the product, I did not focus on any group shots. Removing the product from the packaging and then stacking it with the box, the wrapper, and the actual product itself could create a group dynamic, but I wouldn't necessarily call that the group shot from this proposed project scope. Also, referring to this, lifestyle in my interpretation involves actual people and hands and using the product and taking a bite out of it if it's food and doing things like that. I did not do any of that for this shoot, mainly because I didn't feel like eating the product. Also, I don't think that the final images that I produced would be considered lifestyle. I will come up with another video and another topic for that, but for this specific project, these are not lifestyle. If you're enjoying this video so far, you're getting a bit of value, I would appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. Or if you have a question about the prompts that I use for ChatGPT, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I can share that with you. Now that we know what we're shooting, let's move on to the gear that I'm using to help produce those images. So for this shoot specifically, I'm using my Sony A7III and the Sony 50mm f1.8. For future shoots, I will be using flash, but for this shoot, I actually used the Ulanzi 40-watt cob light and the dome diffusion as my main source of light. I do have to say that there is a window in my office right here. I open these to let a little more natural light in, and then I also sometimes use a white foam board as a light reflection source for some of these images. Now let's move on to the actual setup. For most product shoots that I do at home, I'm using my home office. So the surface that I'm using is a table that I picked up from IKEA, and then for this specifically, I use just a red poster board as the main background for most of the images, but I also used a DIY tiled kitchen backdrop that I created. I actually have a video and I'll link it somewhere on the screen so that you can go check out how I created that, and then you'll see it in the final images of this video. So if we're paying attention to the project scope, it requested a clean background, and I started with that kind of kitchen tile background look. For that to be clean, we're going to use a shallower depth of field. Now, I normally don't shoot products at the widest aperture. I just don't think that it provides a nice roll off. I think sometimes, especially with food or things like that, where or you have boxes or packaging, some of those things can, one part of it will be in focus and then the rest of it will be, out of focus. I like to shoot with my aperture closed down a little more. So most of these images are shot at 5.6, 6.3. When it comes to creating those final images, I did not use any additional props. The only things that I used were the box that the product came in, the wrapper, and the actual product itself. I removed it from the wrapper for some of these shots. Other things to pay attention to are, I knew what I wanted to do with these final images and create kind of a poster style social media image, and for that I needed negative space. So you'll notice with some of these shots there's a lot of extra space around the product or at the top or bottom of the image, and that's so that I could manipulate it without needing to expand the background in post. Once I feel like I have all of the shots that I need based on the project scope and the shot list, I just walk over to my computer, take the SD card out, put it into my computer, and then I actually use Adobe Bridge to do my first pass of culling, and then I import those photos into Lightroom for the base edit, and then any additional edits or things that I feel I'm just not comfortable doing in Lightroom, I actually move those images over to Photoshop. So take a look at some of the final images and this posterized social media based graphic that I created in Photoshop. I used Photoshop's kind of find similar text feature to find a font that was similar enough, and then kind of manipulated it to look as close to the logo as I could. I hope you enjoyed this look behind the scenes of me creating this imagery. I really think it's useful for beginners or people who are interested in working with product photography, kind of what the process looks like. My history with this is I worked for a marketing agency and I actually shot products all the time. So I'm very used to coming up with the scopes, listening to clients, getting their feedback, coming up with the shot list, setting up a day in the studio and actually shooting these images. So I have a ton of experience with this with actual clients, and this was a fun project to do on my own. I'd love to hear your feedback on these images. I want to know what you think. Is there anything that you would have done differently? Anything I could have improved on? I really appreciate any feedback. If you are someone who owns a business who needs product photography or videography, feel free to head to the description below and check out my portfolio, or hit me up if you want to work with me. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks that you will enjoy this one next. As always, remember to do the work, believe in yourself, and most importantly, keep creating. Thanks for watching. Peace.